Berserk chapter 367. It's still quite mind-boggling to think that we're going to be getting chapters this frequently. The next one, 368, won't be coming out till August 12th. They're going to be taking a little bit of a break, which is completely understandable. And it's actually pretty crazy to think that we've gotten 3 chapters in this quick of a time span, considering that in years before, you would be lucky to get 2 or 3 throughout an entire year. To really put things into perspective, Berserk has had less than 10 chapters released from the time that I started my YouTube channel till now. 3 of those coming in the last month. I don't think I've had enough time to really think and put things together, but getting into chapter 367, I think in this chapter, regarding the artwork, I did notice the difference in style in this one a lot more than the previous 2 chapters, which I felt were pretty faithful to Miura's art style. Again, that is to be expected, but I do think the art still did a great job of portraying things. Now, where we left off in the previous chapter is with Zod reaching the island after Griffith had basically shown himself, and Guts went, I'm not going to say Berserk, that would just be too easy. Guts went off. Just swinging like a madman at Griffith, not being able to hit him at all, and then that's when Zod appears at the end of the chapter. And so this chapter continues off of that, with Zod continuing his attacks on Guts, and Guts does his best to kind of manage and hold off. And then we're cut to a scene of Lady Danon saying that everything will be lost, most likely speaking about the island of Elfheim. And this is just what I would consider typical Berserk. You get your happy, good feeling moments, things were starting to look up, and then nope, it's instantly ripped from you once again. I mean, to be honest, it wasn't all that peachy. Like, even when they were on the island and Casca got her mind back, she still couldn't see Guts. So this just confirms my theory that Berserk fans were just a bunch of masochists in denial. Now, what happens next is really the meat of the chapter. As Guts is dealing with all of this regarding Zod, we then see Griffith walking towards Casca, Farnese, and Shirke. And so Guts instantly charges for him, of course, and as Griffith approaches and holds his hand out, we see Guts in a furious rage, ready to lay down the hammer of revenge on Griffith, to no avail once again, as Griffith is holding Casca, and Shirke and Farnese are nowhere to be found anymore, which I'm wondering if they just ran off, or that part did leave me a little confused, so I'm not sure, as well as when Guts swings down his sword onto Griffith, whether or not it made actual impact and it just stopped at his shoulder, or, because I mean, looking at the artwork a little better, it looks like it stops right where Griffith's hair is. I think this is just a clear manifestation of Griffith's powers once again, the ability to sort of can't touch this sort of thing. But the real importance here is Griffith's actions are very interesting, and once again, he's extremely elusive as a character, because for this entire chapter, we don't hear Griffith say anything at all. We don't even get his inner thoughts. And to be honest, we don't get much of Guts' inner thoughts, just his reaction to the moment, which I think is appropriate, because what is Guts to think during all of this? But with Griffith, it's one of those things where it reminded me instantly of the scene back on the Hill of Swords, where Griffith was holding Casca to protect her from danger, and we see that being the more so the emotions of the Moonlight Boy. And I think given the context of him appearing on this island as the Moonlight Boy and everything surrounding that, I definitely do think it is the actions, or my mistake, it is the persona of the Moonlight Boy prompting Griffith to do this. Now, whether or not there is a piece of Griffith himself that actually wants to protect Casca, well, that would be very interesting, because technically, yes, but that's the Moonlight Boy. But just like in the previous chapters, I think 367 is doing an amazing job of reigniting that passionate hatred for Griffith that might have been fading away a little bit once we arrived on Elfheim. Not only for Guts, but for us as the reader. And I think that's very important in our investment in what will be the upcoming arc, as this is definitely being wrapped up. And my goodness, what a way to wrap up an arc once again. I think so far chapter 365, 366, and 367 have all been great setup chapters, as not only a wrap up for this arc, but also a brilliant setup for the next arc. As in the previous chapter reviews, I talked about how Guts was truly at a crossroads. Now he is clearly being pushed into one direction, and he has no other choice. Current moment, we're not getting a lot of Guts' inner thoughts. We're simply getting his hateful, angry reaction to all of this, which I think is extremely appropriate, and I don't think we'll really get to see Guts truly have a time to properly think about it until this is all said and done, and there might be a quiet moment, because we don't... I can't really determine where the story is going to go directly in the next chapter, because either Griffith could take off with Casca, which I think is something he might try to do, but will be stopped by the Skull Knight. That's the main thing I wanted to bring up, and I brought it up in the last video. Where in the world is the Skull Knight? And I would be extremely surprised if he didn't show up in the next chapter, because this feels like the perfect moment for the Skull Knight to swoop in and be like, nah, you not leaving, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna kill the big furry over there too. But it's a little odd to me that we don't even like see the Skull Knight anywhere. I know he just kind of like pops up every now and then, but like even now with the destruction of Elfheim taking place, it would feel extremely odd if Skull Knight doesn't show up soon. We see the leaves blown off of the great tree and the island starting to fall apart and crumble, and then we see Farnese still holding out to Shirke, so they appeared once again. And in terms of the overall chapter with how it ends, with Griffith holding onto Casca, standing up, and Zod behind him, again, this looks like Griffith is prompt to just whisk her away, which, my goodness, I don't even... Again, if the reaction to this was, hey, yo, me and my homeboys hate Griffith, then that was the perfect reaction, because I think that's exactly what they're going for, and it's great. In terms of the how quick and short this chapter felt, I think it was once again due to the lack of dialogue, and I think that's just due to what's happening in the current scene. This isn't something that I think Guts would have a lot really going through his mind with a ton of dialogue. Again, Miura is no longer the one behind it, so I'd imagine they want to be very careful with that kind of thing. But I think we will start to slow down a little more once we get more dialogue from characters like Guts, the Skull Knight. But in this chapter, keeping Griffith's words very minimal to none, actually, I think leaves a lot of things open for interpretation and leaves the intrigue to theorize what Griffith is truly feeling and what his intents are, which I feel like has always been a really compelling aspect of the character until we finally get those mask-off scenes with him. And if there's one very important character I haven't really talked about much regarding their reaction once this is all said and done, it is Casca. Because Guts and Griffith, there's some sort of semblance. More so Guts. I feel like Guts' route as a character from here on out is a little more predictable, if you will. Not in a bad way, just I can kind of see where it's going. Griffith is as elusive as ever, but nonetheless, we know his actions are prompted by the Moonlight Boy. But Casca, it's going to be very interesting to see what Casca thinks or how she feels or what she says when she wakes up again and sees Griffith. She had a panic attack and passed out. Will that happen every single time she opens her eyes and sees Griffith and is also incapable of speaking to Guts? So Casca's sort of mental, spiritual state, if you will, is very fragile at the current moment, which is obvious. But I think her feelings and her actions will greatly affect what Guts and Griffith do. More so Griffith, because I think from here on out, she will be in closer proximity to Griffith than Guts. Really depends on what happens in these upcoming few chapters, because if Griffith does whisk Casca away and she starts to spend more time with him, this is going to be a very painful experience in Berserk fashion. I enjoyed 367 a lot. I think it's impressive how much it was able to sort of emotionally invest me still with these characters despite very little being said. And I'm really looking forward to what is to come out next. Of course, I mean, come on, it's me. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this chapter down in the comment section below. And as always, like, comment, subscribe. This has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.